screen.
Alaikum. We begin with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The topic today which I am going to teach is about the GIT module. It is the overview, secretory, digestive and absorption function of the GIT. As you know, students, the GIT is a long tubule which has got the basic function. We have got a mouth, a long tube-like structure going towards the anus, and in the mouth, the food is masticated. After the mastication of the food, it has to, because these nutrients are important for us. So those nutrients, they get absorbed and masticated in the mouth, they go into the esophagus. From the esophagus, they enter into the stomach. So the objectives of my lecture is, in fact, I am going to give you an overview how the secretions are coming out from the GIT to aid in digestion, and then how those secretions and the food nutrients are getting absorbed. So the learning objectives of my lecture are digestion of the nutrients, absorption of the nutrient and the water, what is the fate, what happens into the liver, the products which have been absorbed in the stomach by the portal system, they go into the liver. So what is the fate in the liver? Then what are the regulatory factors? You know, they are the nervous regulation, and also there is the chemical methods, how the food is absorbed and regulated. So we will be studying this also. So let's go towards the lecture. We will also study the motility and all these things, how the absorption and how the secretions are controlled by the hormonal and by the nervous mechanism. So we will be studying in this lecture. So if you look at the GIT, you know, it's a long tubule. This is the mouth, this is the esophagus, and then this is the diaphragm. It enters here and then it joins into the stomach. From the stomach comes the duodenum, and then this is the duodenum. The multiple coiled structure is the large and small intestines, which then travels into the large intestine and then into the rectum. So we'll be studying the overview, how the nutrients which we take in everyday life are absorbed and taken, how it is regulated. So let's see that we need nutrients, macronutrients and micronutrients for the body, because they are essential elements, and by that we get energy. So the food is in different forms. It can be in form of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids. We are taking food in different forms. It can be carbohydrates, they can be proteins, and they can be lipids. All these foods are masticated in the mouth, and then they are going down into the GIT so that they can be absorbed and provide energy and nutrients so that it can be used by the cells. So the food needs to be broken down into small pieces, and that is done in the mouth. And then food enters, and when it mixes with the enzymes, a chemical digestion also begins. So this is how the three major food nutrients which we are taking, that is the carbohydrates, the proteins and the fats. So the carbohydrates, they're broken down into smaller molecules like the glucose, the disaccharides, the monosaccharides. Okay, so the carbohydrates, proteins and the lipids, they are broken down into smaller products, and then they are absorbed by the cells so that the body can use it for our different mechanisms which are needed by the body to perform. Okay, so the chemical digestion begins after the mechanical. The particles become small in number by mastication. The chemical, which is the enzymatic actions, so that the carbohydrates are broken down into smaller, like disaccharides, they get more simplified to monosaccharides. The proteins, the peptide bonds in between the proteins is broken down into amino acids. Then the third nutrient which we take is the lipid, and that also gets broken down into diglycerides, which further broken down into monoglyceride. Okay, so if you look at the GIT organization, we can see that this GI organization is in form of a tube. It's a long tube, and at varying levels, it gets distinguished into different localized organs. Okay, so the composition of the GIT is a tube running from the esophagus going down into the rectum. And then with this GIT, we have got some accessory organs attached to it, as the liver, which is a very important accessory organ, and this is the liver. And then we have also got pancreas, and the pancreas has also got enzymes. So the accessory organs are the gallbladder, the pancreas, and the liver. Excuse me. जी हाँ, आप स्टार्ट हुआ है लेक्चर. आई मीन लेक्चर. The structure of the GI tract, there are 4 layers. Okay, if you take a transverse section, there are 4 layers basically. Number 1 is the mucosa, number 2 is the submucosa, number 3 is the muscularis externa, and number 4 is the serosa. So mucosa is the innermost layer, and it has got cells which are also called the enterocytes. Then this mucosa is supported by a connective tissue, that's the lamina propria. Then comes the muscularis mucosa, which is a thin layer of muscle. In this diagram, you can see that this is the mucosa and this is the muscularis mucosa. Okay. Then after the muscularis mucosa, the main layer which we studied is the mucosa. Then we have got the submucosa, and this submucosa contains a network of plexus called the Meissner's plexus, which is more towards the glandular area of the mucous membrane, because it controls the secretions. So that is why this Meissner's plexus is present in the submucosa. So it is more near the mucosa, because the mucosa contains different assorted different types of cells in different areas, and it has to be controlled. So the nervous plexus, which supports the mucosa glands, are the Meissner's plexus. I hope you remember, like you are third year students, you are taught in GIT that there is an enteric nervous system, and that enteric nervous system has got 2 components. One is the Meissner's plexus, and the other is a Urbach's plexus. So students, remember, the Meissner's plexus controls the secretory activity, whereas the muscularis externa, which contains the longitudinal muscles and the circular muscles, they in between them is sandwiched another plexus called the Urbach's plexus. This controls the motility. So if you look at the structure of the GIT, we can see that there are 4 layers. One is the mucosa, the second is the submucosa, the third is the muscularis externa, which contains the circular and the longitudinal muscles, and the last one is the serosa. Okay, so this is the overview of the layers of the GIT. Now, functions of the GIT system, as you know, that the main function of is to absorb the nutrients which you take, digestion. So the mechanical digestion is then broken, the food broken down into smaller products, and with the help of the enzymes, it get mixed, so the chemical digestion begins. Okay, so all those foods which we take are necessary for the absorption, and beside that, the water and other nutrients which are which we take are also then get absorbed. Now coming to the mouth, if you look at the mouth, the mastication begins, the food is broken down, and here it is mixed with some enzymes. Those enzymes, I hope you remember, were the lingual amylase, which breaks down the carbohydrates in the mouth. And then there is a lingual lipase, so the lipids which we take in them, it also starts. So we can say that the digestion begins in the mouth. Okay, so these enzymes are the lingual amylase and the lingual lipase. Then the food goes into the esophagus, and from the esophagus, which is this is the esophagus, the food enters into the stomach. Again, in the stomach, it gets churned, forms a substance called chyme, and then chemical digestion also occurs here. As you remember, that the stomach has got gastric glands in its inner layer, and those gastric glands have got different types of cells. I hope you remember the G cell secretes the gastrin, the chief cell secretes the pepsinogen, and the mucous cell secretes the mucus. So all these things are mixed within the stomach, and they make a substance, a semi-liquid, which we call it chyme. And the proteins are broken down further by the pepsinogen into pepsin, and it breaks the peptide bonds. And the lipase secretes, the gastric lipase breaks down the lipids into smaller monosaccharides and disaccharides to monosaccharides, etc. So the pepsin, but it is first in dormant because it digests the proteins. So nature has provided the chief cell to contain granules called pepsinogen, and those pepsinogens are activated by the HCl to produce pepsin. Okay, so the pH of the gastric juice is around 2. Now coming to liver, as the stomach contents go into the duodenum, the bile duct opens into the liver. So the liver has also got important function, like it liberates enzymes. The pancreatic ducts also open in the duodenum. That all these open into the duodenum. The pancreatic duct and the bile duct, it opens into the duodenum. So what happens? The duodenum portion receives the bile, which has got enzymes and bile salts, which break down the fat into more simplified structures. Then the other function of the liver is, or it also removes the waste which are not needed by the body. You know that the RBCs every 120 days, the RBCs are broken down and the bilirubin is liberated. So then it gets converted into oxidized to biliverdin. So the bilirubin, excess bilirubin, due to the excess breaking down of the RBCs, enter into the liver, and the liver also helps in detoxifying the body from the bilirubin. Okay, so then in the small intestines, there are different hormones also coming. Then coming to the bile, we can see that bile is secreted as the stomach contents from the, as I told you, that the stomach contents, now when they go into the duodenum, it meets the pancreatic duct, it secretes the bile, and bile is secreted by the liver, by the cells of the liver, that is the hepatocytes. And you know that bile is composed of different composition. It contains water, it contains mucus, it contains bile salts which emulsify the lipids, then it contains bile pigments like biliverdin and bilirubin. Okay, and bilirubin. This is how the bile salts are reabsorbed. And when these bile cells, when they enter into the duodenum, what happens? That they go into the jejunum, the ileum, and afterwards, what happens? They go in the ileum, so the excess which are not utilized are then again absorbed. So we call it the enterohepatic circulation. Okay, we call it the enterohepatic circulation. So students, you see, this is the liver, and from the liver, you can see that these are the portal veins which are supplying the GIT. So the bile which has been liberated into the duodenum goes into the ileum. Finally, from the duodenum, it enters into the ileum, and when the digestion has been completed, the bile salts gets recycled, and they again go back into the portal blood, which you can see. Look. So you can see that the bile is secreted by the bile ducts into the duodenum, and first it gets, when there is no digestion, it gets concentrated in the gallbladder. They are coming to the duodenum, and when it has done the digestion, so the extra bile salts which are not needed, when they enter into the ileum, they are reabsorbed. So we call it the enterohepatic circulation. So the body wants to conserve the bile salts. Now coming to pancreas, you can see that pancreas is the trypsinogen. When the contents go into the duodenum, as the bile duct is met by the duodenum, the opening of the bile duct is in the duodenum. Similarly, the opening of the pancreatic duct is also in the duodenum. So the pancreas secretions also support digestion within the duodenum. Okay, So the pancreas will secrete some enzymes. You know, the pancreas contains endocrine and exocrine portion. The exocrine portion contains enzymes which are the trypsinogen, the pancreatic amylase, the pancreatic lipase, and the solution which is secreted by the pancreas, it is rich in bicarbonate, because as the substances are going into the duodenum, they are highly acidic. So the pancreatic secretions, they will buffer the acidic substances. So the rich bicarbonate solution is liberated by the pancreas, and it helps to neutralize the acid chain. Okay, so this is how the liver supports the digestion. The pancreas also supports by liberating enzymes, and those enzymes are trypsinogen, which is getting activated due to the presence of enzyme enterokinase from the brush border. These are brush border enzymes coming from the villi, and they are causing the activation of the trypsinogen. So then there is another enzyme, carboxypeptidase, chymotrypsin, and all these enzymes, they help in digestion within the duodenum, because the pancreatic duct also opens into the duodenum. So students, you can see this is the bile duct, and this is the pancreas in the C-shaped structure of the duodenum, and the pancreatic duct opens in the small intestine. So the bile duct secretions and the pancreatic secretions together support digestion. Okay, and the absorption is facilitated. Then there is another enzyme called pancreatic amylase. It causes the digestion of the carbohydrate. And then there is pancreatic lipase, which supports the digestion at the lipids. Then this pancreas also, the exocrine portion also secretes rich pancreatic juice, bicarbonate ions, so that to nullify the acidic action of the chyme. Now look students, this is the duodenum, the C-shaped duodenum. This is a cleared picture showing you this is the liver, and these ducts are coming from the liver. So this is a common bile duct, these are hepatic ducts, common bile ducts, and it gets joined by the gallbladder duct, then it forms the common bile duct. This is the cystic duct. And this is the pancreas in the C-shaped structure, which contains the body and the tail. Okay, and this is the head of the pancreas, this is the body, and this is the tail, and this is the pancreatic duct. So they together unite, and the sphincter which controls this is the sphincter of Odine. Okay, so the secretions of the pancreas and the secretion of the liver together supports digestion, secretion, and absorption within the GIT. Okay, so this is how it is. Now, as I told you, that duodenum receives a lot of enzymes from the pancreas and from the liver, so they aid the digestion. And look at this, all together, the peptidases, they break the bonds of the proteins, and they make them more into amino acids, smaller parts, so that the absorption of the protein occurs. Then the disaccharidases, this also supports the maltase, sucrase. These are different enzymes which are all the secretions of the duodenum, and these are called the brush border enzymes, and they also break the carbohydrates into smaller substance, that is the glucose. Then there is the intestinal lipase, and this also supports the fatty acid digestion. So in this way, the pancreas is supporting the digestion, the liver is supporting the digestion, plus the brush border enzymes within the intestines also supporting the digestion. Then coming to jejunum and ileum. If you look at the jejunum and ileum, we can see the nutrients then as they further move down from the duodenum into the jejunum and ileum, further digestion and absorption occur. As I told you, the brush border enzymes which we have just discussed will increase the absorption, because they are in form of villi, because the villi you can see the villi, these are the villi, and they have got the capability of increasing the absorption because they are in folded form, So there are a lot of enzymes secreted by the brush border enzymes, which I have just also mentioned, that it simplifies the food into glucose and fatty acids. Then comes the colon. After that, the food enters into the colon, that is the large intestines, and which comprises the three parts: the ascending part, the transverse, and the descending. Here, basically, the nutrients are absorbed in the stomach, the duodenum, the jejunum, and ileum. The remaining portion goes into the colon. Here, most is not the digestion, it is the reabsorption of the water and the extra juices which are left. So, students, I hope you understood that the glucose, it is absorbed in form of monosaccharides, and the monomers are carried and transported from here again, which we discussed, from the intestines. Absorption occur, and they take the nutrients to the liver by the portal system. So you can see in this picture that all those nutrients, they get absorbed, and then after that they enter into the portal system, so for further reabsorption of the leftovers. So absorption occurs, the proteins degrade into amino acids, they are transported back into the portal circulation, into the liver, so that it can be further digested, and the things which are not needed, the liver detoxifies. The lipid absorption also occurs in the GIT, which I have told you, that the lipids, they are taken, all the things which have been absorbed are taken by the portal blood to the liver, where it is more modified and then again taken, and not the things which are not needed, they are detoxified by the liver. So the lipids, they are, when they get absorbed by the GIT, what happens, that they are in form of fatty acids, they get absorbed by means of diffusion, and when they get absorbed by the diffusion, they are coated by proteins, okay? They are coated by proteins in form of chylomicrons. And then after, when they are absorbed by the small intestines, they enter into the lymphatic circulation. So this is the small intestine, okay? The lipids, they get absorbed, and then they are coated by the chylomicrons, which are protein in structure, and after they get absorbed, they enter into the blood, so that from the blood, from the GIT, they enter into the lymphatic system, so that they are further circulates and again taken by the body and utilized by the body, or then not needed, they get detoxified. Then beside this, there is absorption of minerals, that is the sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, calcium, and iron. So all these things are also absorbed. Active absorption occurs within the jejunum and ileum, and then there is also passive secretion. The things, potassium is also excreted out, passive secretion occurs, and then bicarbonate, which is a lot of bicarbonate solutions are secreted by the pancreas. So things are secreted and also absorbed by the intestine, okay? And the calcium is reabsorbed by means of active transport, and the iron is also actively absorbed by the GIT. So now the fate of nutrients, as you know, when all these things which are digested, they are then absorbed, they have to be utilized. The different areas of the, then they are circulated in the blood, and different, it will go into different areas, and then, and by the different areas, it will be taken up for the utilization. And if there is excess glucose, what will happen? It will get chopped up into bigger molecules like glycogen. The lipids may also take the glucose. The things which have been absorbed, if they are excess, they will be stored. Like the glucose, it will be stored in form of glycogen in the liver, and if it is in form of lipids, it will go into the adipose tissue. And if it's an amino acids, those amino acids, they can be used by the liver to synthesize many enzymes, hormones, etc. And they also form carrier proteins. And if they are excess amino acids, they get deaminated and they make urea, so it gets excreted out from the GIT. So the body, the nutrients which we take, it gets absorbed, goes into the blood, and then again excreted back and utilized, and if it is not used, it is excreted back. So if you look at this picture, it is in a nutshell explaining how the things are absorbed, and then the nutrients which I mentioned, that is the glucose, the fatty acids, the amino acids. You can see that the absorption of the nutrients occur. If you look at the glucose, if it goes into the liver, if it is in excess, and in the muscle, it will form glycogen, which is a storage form of glucose, and when it is needed, it will again, it's reversible, breaks down into glucose and can be utilized. And the glucose can also be utilized by the Krebs cycle into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Okay, and excess is formed, glucose goes into form of storage, that is glycogen. Then coming to the fatty acids, which have been absorbed by the blood from the GIT, the fatty acids, they may go again into the liver, where they can form liver. In the liver, the fatty acid can break into glycerol fatty acids, and the fatty acids can again form the storage atom, that is, they can form triglycerides. Then coming to amino acids, they can also be utilized into store. Like this fatty acids got stored into triglycerides when they were excess from the blood. And if they are more than excess, then they will be circulating in the blood, causing increased level of lipids in our blood. Then amino acids which have been absorbed are used by the liver so that they can support the metabolism of the muscle, right? And the proteins are needed by the amino acids are needed. Okay, so in this way, the body utilizes all these nutrients in our body. Now, what is the post-absorptive states? You can see that this is how it is. The muscles, understandable. The proteins, the amino acid joined together, they are the one which makes the proteins. They're broken down into amino acids. Those amino acids, whenever needed, then go into the cycle for utilization. Okay, so adipose tissue, then it is excess lipids, they form triglycerides, and when needed, they again break down into fatty acids and glycerol. So the body takes the nutrients, absorbs them, circulates them, then after circulation, when they are in excess, they store them, and when the body needs again, they break it down and provide the body. Either it can be carbohydrates, either it can be proteins, or it can be fats. Okay, so the muscle, when needed, we are doing exercise or any work, so the proteins will be broken down to amino acids and they will provide the body. Then adipose tissue, they will provide fatty acids and glycerol. Okay, and the liver, glycogen, which we saw, it can also provide glucose. Okay, so they will all enter into these components, will then enter into the blood, into these forms, and then glycogen breaks into utilization, they forms the pyruvic acid. So all these things then form glucose by entering into the Krebs cycle. So these products, that is the amino acids, the fatty acids, the ketones, glucose, when they, after the body's metabolism, they may enter into the tissue also for further utilization. Now, the secretion, you can see that the GI function in every meal, it gets absorption of the food. So how does it get absorbed? So you know that as the food enters into the GIT, we have studied the nervous system, that it contains the enteric nervous system. So this enteric nervous system has got some receptors, and they are present in the GIT, which can be in form of mechanoreceptors or chemoreceptors or osmoreceptors. So the GIT contains receptors, and they then support the nervous system so that they causes the different types of secretions and motility. The mechanoreceptors in the GIT will support the motility of the GIT. Okay, and they communicate with the enteric nervous system, because the mechanoreceptors will communicate with the enteric nervous system, which is the short loop, because the enteric nervous system is present within the GIT. Then there is a long loop, that is the vagus nerve, which goes towards the brain. So the enteric nervous system has got receptors in the GIT, that is the mechanoreceptors, which monitor the motility because it is by the Urbach's plexus. Then the chemoreceptors are present within the GIT, and they are also communicated with the enteric nervous system. You know the mesos plexus, which is in the submucosa. They sense the chemical digestion. So the chemoreceptors are also present in the GIT mucous membrane, and then they excite the liberation of the different enzymes for the digestion. So these receptors are important, the mechanoreceptors. These are all present within the layer of the GIT, the mechanoreceptors, and they communicate with the nervous system. And the osmoreceptors, which monitor the osmolarity of the luminal structure, that is the water. Okay? Then all these, yes, please.
मैम क्लास का टाइम तो ऊपर हो रहा है, तो आप मुझे बताएं आपकी स्लाइड्स कितनी रह गई हैं अभी आपकी?
बस 1-2 स्लाइड है, 2-3 स्लाइड है, तो मैं पास कर देती हूँ.
जी जी
ठीक है,
तो कर दें. एक क्लास है ना मेरी.
चलिए ठीक है, बस I'll just in 5 minutes. So all this then communicate with the central nervous system. Then they communicate with the central nervous system. We call it the long reflex. So students, I will just show you this slide. Is very important. This is the nervous system. This is the lumen. The stimulus occur, and these are the receptors present in the lumen. The chemoreceptors, the mechano and the osmo, and then they relay their sensation into the enteric nervous system. So we call it the short reflex. And then the long reflex is the vagus nerve, which goes to the CNS. So all these things are carried by to the nervous system so that the secretions can be regulated. So whenever we take something in the mouth, the salivary secretions, they get stimulates the parasympathetic activity. The nervous system is excited, and then they stimulate the gastric cells to secrete the gastrin, and then the parietal cells to secrete. So whenever we take food in our mouth, automatically the nervous impulses go towards the CNS, and they also causes the secretions within the stomach and stimulate the cells of the stomach, so that they secrete all these enzymes, so that the digestion starts beginning in the mouth and also in the stomach. So we call it the gastric phase, and in the gastric phase, these secretions are secreted, and they stimulate the nervous system to secrete. As the time is short, students, I'm going in a fast way. So these are the parietal cells and chief cells, and by means of the long and short reflex, which I've just explained you, they will cause the cells to secrete secretions. And similarly in the intestines also, as the food enters, the hormones, the GI hormones, that is as the fat enters into the stomach, the CCK gets stimulated, and it promotes more pancreatic secretions. So in this way, as the mouth and food enters into the mouth, it goes into the stomach, it goes into the intestine, everything is coordinated for the nervous mechanism to stimulate the at the level of stomach to secrete the gastric secretion, at the level of the bile gallbladder to secrete the bile juices, at the level of pancreas to secrete the biliary pancreatic secretion. So in this way, all this nervous mechanism supports the digestion at various places. So students, I hope you understood that as the food enters into the duodenum, the increased acid occurred, so that acid stimulates the cells in the duodenum, S cells to secrete secretin, increased plasma secretin occur, and which causes the pancreas to cause increased bicarbonate solution. So the duodenum secretes the rich bicarbonate solution, so that the acid has to be neutralized. So this is how all the things come into action. So the acid in the stomach cause secretin to be secreted, which causes the neutralization of the acidic content of the stomach, which had entered into the duodenum. Then this is similarly, again, when the acid is neutralized, a negative feedback occurs. Okay, so this is then acid in the duodenum. When the food enters into the duodenum, it also, the protein products also cause CCK, and it causes the contraction of the gallbladder, so that the gallbladder liberates bile, so that the neutralization of acid occurs. So the neutralization of acid into the duodenum had occurred at different stages in the duodenum by the bile and by the pancreatic secretions. So students, thank you so much. It was nice teaching you. Any questions? Okay. Any questions, please? बोले क्वेश्चंस करना है तो आ जाओ. कुछ पूछिए. मैंने कहा एनी क्वेश्चंस. वो कम्युनिकेट ही नहीं कर रहा. चेक टाइम स्टॉप शेयर कर दूं.
मैम क्लास इज ओवर.
थैंक यू मैम कह दिया ना.
मैम क्लास ओवर हो गई मैम. हेलो.